Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so what I want to do today is give you a overview as to what you should do in the home when doing an in-home presentation for mortgage protection. And I'm going to map out some key core transitions. So let's start here. When going into the home, obviously you've scheduled the appointment over the telephone and you've done your due diligence over the telephone by asking the important questions over the phone. You should be getting their how much they paid for their mortgage, reviewing some of the medical questions that they answered on the lead form, scheduling if it's going to be both the husband and wife there together. You should also find out if they already have some prior life insurance is always a good indicator as to what you're going to be walking into. And so you're just a little bit more prepared. And so when you get into the home, one of the first things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to build rapport, whether that's paying them a compliment on something that they have in their home. Keep in mind, these folks, a lot of them just did a first time purchase within the past 12 months. And so you can pay them a compliment on something that maybe they've done in the home, in terms of a design, a painting, maybe they have a pet, whatever that looks like. Just go ahead and pay a compliment and build something off that. Also, what you want to do is you don't want to spend too much time in the home when doing a cord. You want to be able to uh, just spend about 5 minutes chit chatting. You don't want to be taking 15 minutes doing core because then that takes completely away from your presentation. Now you've made a friend, and a lot of times people don't buy from their friends. So, core in the beginning, develop rapport. That's step one. Step number two is you want to act like a doctor. You want to diagnose the situation. You want to figure out very quickly by question and asking exactly what's going on with their current situation. Here's what I mean. You want to find out about their current policies. Do they have whole life? Do they have term life? And if so, while you're sitting there, say, hey, listen, I'm the expert. I've been doing this a while. Why don't you go ahead and grab me your policies and I can put my set of eyes on it and tell you exactly what you have. Because you may uncover and find out, yeah, they have a term policy, but they got it 20 years ago and they're in a 25-year term. Or they got it, 15 years ago and they're in a 10-year term. So, and again, every situation is going to be different, but it's always good. Or you might get your eyes on that and you notice that their term policy is about to expire in the next 6 months to 12 months. And so you just never know what situation you're going to walk into. So you want to do a policy review. You also want to figure out what are their intentions. What are their intentions? Why did they invite you to come and sit down with them in regards to mortgage protection? Obviously, they just did a refi or first time purchase, but if they already have life insurance, what's the intention? So, what I like to say is if they already have life insurance, I may bring up the fact that life insurance is meant to pay out a claim if another individual dies. It's meant to pay out an income. So, I may say, Bob, Mary, you each have a $200,000 term life policy. Was your intention of getting that policy that if Mary, if Bob, if something was to happen to Bob, you would be able to have an income from his passing? Now, obviously, 200,000 isn't a whole lot of money, but that's the whole purpose behind life insurance is to leave cash behind. And so you want to ask these questions and find out why they did what they did and why they have what they have. If somebody has a $25,000 whole life policy, you may just be able to say, hey, listen, that's great that you have that. That's going to be a perfect fit for, God forbid, in a passing, to pay final expense benefits, to pay for a funeral. You also want to acknowledge and you want to ask the question, who is the primary wage earner? If it's Bob, that's who you want to concentrate on. If it's Mary, concentrate on Mary. But don't ever leave money on the table. Don't ever walk out of the home without an application because you went in with the intention of signing both Bob and Mary up. And then when they both got their three options, it didn't make sense in their budget and they decided that they couldn't afford it. So then they decided to do nothing. So you want to identify who the primary wage earner is. And you can always make it a light joke or a light conversation. And you can say something along the lines of, if you say, Bob, Mary, who's the primary wage earner? And she goes, oh, that's Bob. Right? She goes, that's Bob. And you can go, okay, great. So I'm going to assume that this program is going to be meant for you, Bob. Is that correct? And they'll tell you yes or no who the plan is for. So don't ever assume that it's for both. It's a bonus if you walk out of the home with two applications, 100%. But you really want to go in with the intent of you want to take care of the person, whoever has their name on the loan and whoever makes the most money, because that's what we're going to need to replace. Uh, you also, and then look, if they're both like, hey, listen, he or she's the primary breadwinner, but we want this on both of us, then you can always crisscross the questions. And here's what I mean. So one of the questions that you want to ask in the home is, do you have 3, 6, 12 months in reserves if something was to happen to either one of you? So you ask the question, do you have anything in reserves? Something to protect you or keep you going for the next 3 to 6 or 12 months? And let them answer the question. See, mortgage protection is an emotional sale backed by logic. You also want to ask them the question like, what is the largest bill that you have outgoing from your account every month? Is it, if they're younger, maybe it's the kids' student loans. Maybe maybe if they live in a big house, maybe it's the electric bill. Maybe it's credit cards. Maybe it's consolidating debt and making that lump sum payment. So you want to ask. The reason you're doing this is because you're ultimately going to paint a picture for them. See, you're going to ask questions like, now, Mary, I understand Bob is the primary wage earner, and he goes to his job every day, Monday through Friday. And if something was to happen to Bob, I don't mean he was to pass away, but let's say he's on his way home from work one night and somebody's on their phone text messaging and they run a red light and bam, they hit his car and he is completely debilitated. He is unable to go back to work for several years. He's maybe unable to perform daily living activities. Maybe he's unable to dress himself, bathe himself, feed himself. That could be something considered a critical injury, okay? Critical illness, critical injury. Or what about if something unforeseen was to happen over the next 20 years? I understand you're both in your mid 40s, and as you sit here in front of me, you're very healthy. But what would happen over the next 20 years if some unforeseen circumstance, a heart attack, a stroke, cancer, and not to be, Debbie Downer, the bearer of the bad news, but heart attack is one of the leading causes of deaths of males in our country. Cancer takes lives from both male and females. It's the number one cause of death in the country. And so, there's all these unforeseen circumstances that could possibly happen in the near future. And so that's what mortgage protection is. So you understand, Bob and Mary, mortgage protection is meant to help you while you're alive. The bonus is, God forbid one of you passes away, it could potentially pay off your full mortgage. I also like to use the analogy, I compare it to car insurance. Car insurance we have, not because, right, we intend on being in a car accident or we intend on somebody hitting us, but the reason we have gap insurance and we have full bodily coverage and all that stuff is because if somebody does hit us, our car's covered, the other driver's covered, a passenger in our car's covered. And a lot of times we drive for 50 years and never get into a car accident. But do we pay the premium every month or every quarter or every year? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And so that's what living benefits are. They're meant to cover you in the result of a critical illness or a critical injury, a chronic illness, or a terminal illness. It's meant to protect you while you're alive. And so after you're done asking the questions and painting the picture, here's another question I always like to ask. I like to say, let's say it's Mary. Mary's the primary wage earner. I might say, Bob, what does life look like if you were to lose your spouse? How do you continue to put the kids in school and pay the bills and keep the lights on and pay the mortgage, keep the roof over your head, do all the things and keep your style of living the same? What does life look like in this particular situation? And then don't say anything. Let them answer the question. Let them think about Wow, what could happen? See, we all live in this bubble of life and we don't like to think of the worst case scenario. But what we do as agents is we need to bring the reality to the forefront of their mind, even if it's just for the next 30 minutes, and allow them to truly understand the importance and the purpose of mortgage protection. If somebody was to say, "Well, I already have life insurance," great. How much life insurance do you have? That's fantastic. Did you realize that life insurance and mortgage protection are two totally different things? And then you can give the definition as to why. And so, part two, step two, diagnosing the situation, this is where the sale happens. This is where you're accumulating the information. This is where you're asking the tough questions. You're painting the picture. You're putting them in real life scenarios. And you're really just trying to hold and get their attention so that they're really starting to resonate and think with you about what the future might look like in the event of an unforeseen circumstance. That's what we do. And that could, and explaining the living benefits, that could be step number three. Okay, so diagnosing the situation, step number two. Step number three could be explaining the living benefits, which is meant to do what? Solve a solution to a problem. Okay. Step number four could be talking about the process of what I do here today is something called a request for coverage. I'm a field underwriter. I can't make a decision for you here today. I have nothing to sell you. You have nothing to buy. I have no way of giving you a definite answer whether or not you may or may not qualify for this program. If it comes down to the point where we think that this does make sense, we'll do something called a request for coverage. So now what you're doing is you're planting the seed. You're preparing their mind. You're preparing them psychologically that come the next 5 to 10 minutes, you are going to be taking an application for them. See, people need to be brought to a certain point without being asked to be there. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Meaning, you never want to say something along the lines of, "Would you like to do an application? Um, would you like to apply for this coverage?" No, what you're going to use is language that says, "What I'm going to do for you here today is, how I'm going to be able to assist you with this is, uh, I am going to do a request for coverage." So just some terminology that you can use. Okay. Make sure you run through your medical questions. Okay. Step number 5, make sure you run through the medical questions. If you're brand new, you absolutely ask every single question on that application. You should be going through in very good detail. My first 100 applications that I took, I read through every single question on that application. And your major ones are obviously cancer, heart attack, stroke, COPD, emphysema, making no cancer, right? So you just want to go through some of the majors right away, especially over the phone when you're scheduling your appointment, just so that you can inspect what you expect so you know what you're walking into. Okay. Once you're done going through the medical questions, then you let them know. Here's where I'm going to put together a couple options for you. Now, I have one more question for you. Were you looking to protect the entire mortgage? Were you looking to possibly just eliminate the interest and maybe some of the partial principal? Or what were you really intending on wanting to have happen for you here today? What does this look like for you? And let them tell you. Some people will say flat out, "I want the entire mortgage covered, 100%. Other people will say, "It depends on my budget." Other people will say, "I think I just want to have a portion of it covered because I already have this other policy over here." And if they do, and you know that it's something of good quality value that they already have, and you're not looking to replace that, agree with them. See, you want to have them on your side of the table. You want to make it a partnership. You want to work with people. Have them work with you, not against you. Let them know that you're in it with them and that you're there to help them together. Okay. And the moment that they really truly see that and they understand, they're more likely to go along with everything that you want to do in the process, as opposed to give you any kind of pushback or resistance. You really will eliminate a lot of the, you're going to eliminate a lot of the pushback and a lot of the objections when they have a feeling inside that you're truly there for their best interest. Okay. And so what's the next step? The next step would be to explain to them that they need to be patient with you and give you 3, 4, 5 minutes so that you can go through the three options. At this point, you know how much their mortgage is, and you should know how much their mortgage payment is. What I like to do is I just take the lead and I flip the lead over. I give them a brochure, something that they can read in the meantime. And what I'll do is I will then go through full, partial, and something called mortgage protection payment. Now, before I get to this point, folks, I really want to hit this home here for you. Every situation is going to be different. You don't ever want to give anyone sticker shock. Sticker shock might be option number one. When you put it into your rate calculator, it could be $200 a month. That could cause sticker shock. Even though option two and option three may not be nearly as high as a premium, for whatever reason, human beings, they can't get that first option out of their mind, and it destroys the whole sale. So you never want to show them anything that's more than $150 a month for the first option. You can work with people and they will tell you money is not an issue. I want the full mortgage covered, and it doesn't matter how much it cost. I had a husband and wife couple in Pleasantville, New Jersey over the summertime. They both went with the program. They were both over the age of 68. They had over a $200,000 mortgage, and their monthly payment was he was $438 a month, and she was 350, 375. But that wasn't the first option I showed them. Once I showed them three options, his daughter sitting on the couch said, I know my dad, and he wants the entire thing covered. And so I said to him, his name was Mark, I said, Mark, is this true? Because I got to let you know ahead of time, the premium's going to go up. And he goes, I don't care how much it cost. Show me. And so I went into my rate calculator, showed it to him, and he goes, I'll take it. How much is it for my wife? I showed it to him, and he goes, we'll take it. And that was that. Now, does that happen all the time? Absolutely not. But will it happen as you begin to walk through living rooms and you're playing the law of large numbers? Yes, you will come across these situations. So I really want to hit home that based on every individual situation is different. And so you just have to be patient and diagnose the situation and figure out where people are in their budget, keep into account their age as well as their medical history and what they're going to be eligible for. Okay. So when you're doing the three options, option number one is, and I'm just going to use a whole number just to keep everything simple. Option number one might be one for $100,000. That's how much their mortgage is, $100,000. Okay. Option number two, what you want to do is you want to take whatever their mortgage amount is. So if it's $100,000, split it in half, it's $50,000. If it's $200,000, make it $100,000. Right? Are you with me so far? So option number one, full amount, depending upon the situation, or you want to get as close to it as possible. Option number two, split that number in half, so it covers half the mortgage. And then option number three is something called Mortgage Protection Payment Program, MPP. Now, MPP can be designed in two different ways. The first way MPP is designed around the way I'm presenting it right now. Someone who qualifies for a mortgage protection plan. Someone who's going to qualify for that term life program, right? Because of their medical history. Young, not a whole lot of meds, clean medical history, they qualify. MPP comes into play as the third option when you take their mortgage amount that they pay, their monthly payment. So let's say somebody's mortgage payment is $1,000 a month. If their mortgage payment is $1,000 a month and they're under the age of 50, rule of thumb is you can take that number and times it by 36 months. If they're over age 50 or 55, play it by year, then you want to take that mortgage payment and times it by 24 months. What is this? Mortgage protection payment is it's a mask. It's a mask for mortgage protection. Here's how I would explain the mask. You don't want to say the word mask. I'm just explaining it to all of you. So here's what it is. Mortgage protection payment is presented this way. And if you're taking notes, you want to write this part down if you haven't started writing anything down up to this point. I would say, Bob, this third option a lot of times is our most popular option. Why? Because Mary, so you're talking to both, okay? Don't ever exclude one or the other. Because Mary, if anything was to ever happen to Bob, you would be guaranteed that your mortgage would be paid every single month for the next 24 months, next 20, 30, 36 months, whatever the number it is that you put on the paper. And so what that's going to do is that's going to give you peace of mind to know that the bank will not put you into foreclosure. It's also going to give you peace of mind to know that while you're going through the grieving process, organizing your bills now, getting your affairs in order, this is one less thing that you need to worry about. It's also, here's the third thing, Mary, it's going to give you options. You are going to figure out whether or not you want to stay in the home, if you'd like to sell the home, or if you decide to put the home up into a rental property, but you will never have to worry that you're going to go into foreclosure. It gives you that breathing room. So again, I'll run through it. Option 1 is you're going to cover the full mortgage. Option 2, split that mortgage in half and you're going to cover 50%. Then option number 3 is mortgage protection payment, okay? And that's how you present those 3 right there. Now, mortgage protection payment can also be used in a different form. Let's say somebody doesn't qualify for term life insurance, mortgage protection with living benefits. Let's say based on their medical history or their prescription history, they would only qualify for a whole life policy. Now, whole life is a little bit more lenient when it comes to getting an approval process. And so here's the simplest way that I'll explain it to you. You can still show them 3 options, but all 3 options are going to be wrapped around mortgage protection payment. Meaning you're going to take their mortgage payment, if it's $1,000 a month, and you may just wrap that around 15 months, 12 months, 10 months, depending upon their budget. Or you might do 24 months, 20 months, 17 months. Every situation is going to be different. You only have to explain what mortgage protection payment is one time, and then right next to all 3 options, you would show them a program that would be for each individual one that would be for those months, okay? That's only if somebody doesn't qualify for term and you're doing it for whole life, you would use mortgage protection payment for that option right there, okay? Every situation is going to be different. Now, let's go back to the close. When I present all 3 options, I will then say to them, if they have been cooperative and they have been interacting with me throughout the presentation, answering my questions, elaborating, really getting involved in the presentation, I will then say this. Based on everything that you've told me today and where your current budget is, which one of these 3 makes the most sense to you? That's if they're cooperating and they're participating in the conversation. If they've been giving me short answers, yes, no, not sure, yeah, well, Bob passed away, that would suck. If they're just, very short, I will then say this. Based on everything that I've explained to you today and your current situation where your budget is, which one of these options makes the most sense? And then first person to talk loses. Let them decide, okay? Let them decide which option makes the most sense. They pick the one in the middle. I take my pen, I circle it, and I go, great. What I'm going to do for you here today is that request for coverage. Now, there's going to be some pieces of information I need from you, though, ahead of time. That's close number 1. Close number 2. Let's say the objections come. Let's say last person to speak loses, and they go, They're looking at each other, they're talking, they're looking at the paper, and they go, yeah, I just can't seem to make a decision. I don't know which one is going to be best for us. Listen, don't ever walk out of the home with money on the table empty handed. You at that point need to step in, be the edified expert, and you need to say, Bob, Mary, based on my years of experience, your current situation, would it be okay if I gave you my opinion? Would it be okay if I interject and kind of give you some assistance in which program might make the most sense? I have never, in over 600 sits in 4.5 years, had somebody go, no, I don't want to know your opinion. Never. Zero. Never happened. So based on my experience, based on different situations and families I've seen, see me, when I'm in there, I'll say, based on, over 500, 600 people that I've sat with over the past 4.5 years, would it be okay if I interject and give you my professional opinion? Yes. Okay. I will then say, and again, this is only if someone is completely undecided. I will then say to them, are you torn between option number 1 and option number 2, or between option number 2 and option number 3? Here's why I do that. They're going to answer you. They're going to tell you. They're going to say, I can't decide between 1 and 2, for example. I will then go back into my calculator on my phone. Full disclosure for people so that they can see exactly what I'm doing. So it's no bait and switch or any games. I then will go back into the rate calculator on my phone, and let's say that the example was 100,000 and 50,000, and they just can't decide. I will go back into my rate calculator and I will go for the one in the middle, and I will pull up something for 75,000. And I will show it to them on my phone and go, does this make more sense to you now? 9 out of 10 times they go, that's perfect. That's it. That's how you do it. It's that simple. If for whatever reason you feel like it's more about the money than they can't make a decision, then here's what I need you to do. I need you to go, I understand that this is probably a little bit more of a private matter, but the decision wants to be made. I'm going to go outside. I have a couple messages I need to get back to. I'm going to take about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to step out front, or I'm going to step out back. Wherever you are in the home, I'm going to step outside. And I'm going to go ahead and answer my messages, and then I'll come back in, and you should have an answer for me by then. Listen to my language, though. I didn't say anything like hopefully, or maybe you're still going to try to figure it out. No. Again, people need to be led. So you want to lead them to making a decision. When I come back in, you'll have a decision made. Kind of just plant the seed for them, okay? Just walk them along. Nothing is ever perfect, and nothing ever works 1,000% of the time. But a lot of this stuff works 9 out of 10 times, and I'll take those odds a lot better, okay? And so once they've decided on an option, circle it down. Even if they picked one out of your phone, write it down on paper and circle it. At that point, you want to tell them that, now, here's what I'm going to need from you today. I'm going to need a valid photo ID, your doctor's name, address, and phone number. If you don't have it, that's okay. We can Google it. And I'm also going to need any prescription medications that you might be taking. And before they can get up from the table, right, because you just gave them a job, before they can get up from the table, here's the last thing. Here's how you ask for the banking information. Also, could you please get me your routing and account number and decide what day of the month works best for you to pay the premium, assuming this request for coverage goes through as planned. And then I wait. That's it. I'm pulling up my computer. I'm going to the application because we don't do paper apps anymore. I'm pulling it up. I've got my computer out, my laptop, pulling it in. I'm entering in their information. Why? Because I got the lead in front of me. So I'm getting their address in. I'm getting their first and last name in. I'm getting their phone number in. I'm getting some other information that I've already know about them, already entered in the computer. So by the time they come back, I now have everything that I need in order to go through my e-application over the next 5 to 7 minutes. I also set the expectation. I let them know, hey, listen, this is a computer generated application and it's going to take me another 5 to 7 minutes. Nobody's ever said, nope, you got to go. I don't have any more time for you. At that point, you've got it. Okay. And so you don't need to get a voided check because all the information goes in electronically. Now, if you're interested in knowing how to get paid faster, here's how. If today is the 11th and they say, I can't have it come out until the 28th, great, 28th it is. But then I'll ask them a question. Here's the question you want to ask to get paid faster. Today's the 11th, it's Wednesday. I'll say, Bob, Mary, based on your current health, and I know that you got a clean bill of health and you're only taking a cholesterol pill and a water pill and some heartburn medication, based on that, I have a pretty good feeling this one's going to go through within the next 48 hours. And if it does, let's say hypothetically it got approved on Friday, the 13th. Well, would it be okay for them to activate the policy on Friday or Monday, depending upon whenever this application gets approved? Would it be okay to activate it so that your coverage is instantly applied? What's going to happen is they're going to pull the first premium, but then all subsequent premiums will come out on February 28th, March 28th, meaning they won't charge you twice in the same month. Is that okay? So that you can have the coverage right away. Now, the majority of people say yes, unless somebody's super tight in their budget, they'll go, that's not going to work. It has to come out on the 28th. And then you go, okay, great. And just keep doing what you're doing. Okay. And then the last step would be the cool down. The cool down is where you close your laptop down, you finish off a conversation, but more importantly, here is where you're going into the ERS, Emergency Response System. This will be a different video that I will do on the ERS system. So again, I hope you found value in today's presentation on core transitions and what to do in the home and the process of how to take an application in the home. Everybody have a great week, and I look forward to seeing everybody soon.